time, I realize that this can be a little awkward here, but everybody would switch their seat so they feel more comfortable being able to see. That would be fine. Everybody comfortable? Everybody good? You're good? Okay, good. Because then I can nod my head, make sure you're paying attention and you're not sleeping or, writing notes to your neighbor or. All right. Welcome, everybody. I am continuing with this series on making discoveries because I had made a determination at the beginning of this year that the path that I went through, even though my path to realizations and awarenesses and awakenings, even though it was accidental to me as it was unfolding, I recognize in hindsight that there are some predictable steps within the process of enlightenment. And my goal is always to help everybody get to new steps of awakening so that they can experience more and more happiness and let go of more and more masks and layers as quickly as possible. So I thought, well, why not share the steps that happened for me in the accidental process of enlightenment? Because if you're able to set your compass on a destination, you'll be able to put your intention and your energy to making those discoveries so that you can have the benefit of integrating them on this side of the journey and have a longer period of time while you're here planted in this body to enjoy them. The whole idea is that we're all experiencing awakenings in our human experiences, whether it's in this lifetime or any other lifetime. And the awakenings that come in the physical are very different than the awakenings that we have when we're non-physical. And the more you can enhance your ability to have these discoveries and then be able to integrate them, you give yourself permission to get the benefit of them for longer periods of time. And we know people who are flat out asleep. They don't understand anything beyond that their belief in the way the world unfolds for them is accidental or random. But when you are fully asleep, you're not really having aha moments. So you're not getting the benefit of really being in a human body, which is to grow that knowingness and to expand and to get closer and closer to the vibration of love. So as I said, since my initial 2 years in this journey was about learning how to communicate with non-physical sources, I after a while just learned to have trust in the things that they asked me to do. So therefore, my aha moments were accidental to me. I didn't set a target. I didn't have a destination. I didn't plan it. It just happened. And in hindsight, I would be able to look back and see the benefit of all of that knowingness. Ultimately, what I had was a crash course in like how to be happy. I think ultimately enlightenment brings you happiness. Enlightenment means that you strip away our human definition about how we're supposed to live, what we're doing here, and we get to start to peel away pain that we had earlier in life, or even ongoing pain that was at the hands of somebody else through their misinformation or their neglect or abuse or anything else that we had that separated us from infinite wisdom. And so the journey is to get rid of that stuff and then to continue to peel away the masks and layers and to give yourself permission to be free, to be creative, to be expansive, to give and to receive love. This is what we're doing here. And it's really kind of funny, even though I have an unusual base of knowledge where my information comes from, I actually still every day, even though I'm using this conduit every day of my life, I can't tell you how much I want people to just be happy. And if knowing more can help you to be happier, then I'm going to share and share and share and share and share. There's a very, very fun side of what I do, being able to know things that I don't have any earthly means to know. That makes me the party toy. People love to use me as a party to know stuff that other people don't know in the room. But beyond just being a party toy, that conduit is what gives me a lot of insights into what the soul is, why we choose a human journey, what we're doing here, how we can make this experience far more productive. There's oftentimes it's come up in conversations with clients where I explain that since my consciousness can go anywhere and I can direct it to, or I can let it be taken to with guides to the energy realm where we all reside before we're born. And I explain what that state of consciousness is like and how it is utopia, it's bliss, it's unlimited, it's freedom, it's expansive, it's any word you can possibly imagine about how joyful it can possibly be. Imagine all of your best moments on earth and put them all together, and that is what it's like to be in the energy realm without our bodies. So you can see how cumbersome it can be to be human, right? So the next natural question for people is, well then, what the hell am I doing here, right? Why not just return home? And you know what? It seems like that should be a natural question. But what I'm going to tell you is that when you make a discovery on Earth, it becomes you. It becomes a part of your essence. It becomes a part of your being that stays with you eternally. It never gets taken away. It's like the difference between reading a book and getting knowledge and then experiencing it, right? So if I were to sit here and read a passage to you about rock climbing and getting to the peak of a 5,000 foot mountainside, and I'm going to tell you what it's like to put those things, carabiners. Thank you. Is there an athlete in the house? Is there an athlete in the a carabiner? Okay. I almost brought you there, right? You couldn't have done it on your own. So if I were to read this passage to you, and every time I'm spiking in another carabiner, and I'm describing the exhilaration and the fear and the how my muscles are feeling, is anyone going to walk away from here aching? Are they going to wake up in the middle of the night saying, I can't believe what I experienced? It was absolutely mind-blowing the way my senses were stimulated, and that the profundity of being able to be exalted by my own power and my own achievement. No, we're going to say, I heard this great story and I really felt uplifted by it and it made me feel more empowered. Boom, we're done. It's the same thing about being in a body and out of a body. You can have information and knowledge that is not experiential when you're not in your bodies, but when you're in your body, it's experiential. So the event or the experience or the knowledge becomes you. It becomes a part of your being, and you take it with you in every escapade or every event or every earth life that you have from that moment on. So number one, the experiences that you take in while here in your body, it's a very different kind of experience than what you grow and expand into knowing when you're not in your body. And the second thing is, and I can never repeat this enough to people, that there is a miracle beyond miracles that you are sitting here today. Everything had to happen for this exact equation, for you to be who you are, what you look like, what you think, what you experience, who's in your life, what you do, what you don't do, what you think, what you daydream. Everything about you is a miracle, and the composite of everything that you've had since the moment of your birth. All of that stuff, whether you've integrated wisdom or not yet, all this stuff is inside of you, and it's brewing, and it's waiting to coalesce. It's waiting to become your own expansive ability to express your soul's intention here on earth. It's just miraculous that you exist. And even though your essence will go from lifetime to lifetime and your consciousness will go from lifetime to lifetime, this will never happen again. This will never happen again. It will never happen again. You as you are, the miracle of who you are, the originality of who you are in this human form, it's never going to happen again. So my statement is, make the most of it, because it is a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. You might as well make the most of it. Then the third part of why it's it's almost a little more interesting to make discoveries here is that when you compel yourself or intend to grow, to have self-improvement while you are physical, when you have awakenings or you just know stuff that you didn't know before, and you do it on this side of life, like before you die, it helps you to grow and expand at a different rate than if you wait to integrate the knowledge upon death. We're all going to be able to figure stuff out when we die. We're all going to be able to say, this is why I did that. This is why I didn't do that. This is why this happened. We'll understand everything when we die. But the aha moments that come after death are not going to be nearly as profound as when they happen when you're a living human. So your rate of growth and the expansion of your soul and getting closer to the vibration of love happen more readily when you are in a body. So for that reason, I say it's worthy. And the more expansion you have while here, the more you let go of the notion that life is hard. So being here gets increasingly easier. You let go of the idea that we suffer. You let go of the idea that you might not be good enough. You let go of the idea that you might be unworthy, or that you can't do something, or that there's some kind of unwritten rule that says you shouldn't have more than somebody else. It's interesting how many little sayings we have on earth that keep us believing that we don't have the liberty to be fully joyful on an ongoing basis. Some of them are good and meaningful because they act as first steps out of a misbelief that we need to suffer. Like, for example, one of my all-time favorites, God only gives you what you can take. Wow. I must have been really shitty somewhere along the way because, wow, I'm getting really walloped here, and I'm strong, and this is good, but he's not getting walloped, so maybe we could just share some of this a little bit. I don't want to be that strong. Just don't want to be that strong. But thanks God. First of all, the concept of God as this, this man that hands things out to us, it's not a notion that bears any truth whatsoever. What is true is that we are an extension of the consciousness of the vibration of love. Whatever that entity or that consciousness is that you want to label it, it is neither male nor female. It is you. It is me. It is all of us. And it is beyond that. It is existence itself. So there's no punishing. There's no testing. There's no debt. None of that exists. There's only making discoveries, which is why I call this series Making Discoveries. Okay. So that would be one example that, if you're really going through a rough patch, or there's 3 in a row and someone pats you on the back and says, well, God only gives you what you can take. Maybe you could be a little uplifted by it, but does it really help in the long run? I'm not strong. Maybe if I collapse now, he'll lighten up. But it is funny if you think about what we do and how we talk to each other to communicate that life is hard. Another one is whatever. It's sweet. How does it go? Whatever doesn't. I know there's a better. Yeah, thank you. Whatever doesn't kill you will make you stronger, right? Okay, once again, narrowly escape death. I pulled the lions and the wolves off me, and my body's mangled and limbs are hanging, but I'm alive, and damn, am I strong. I'm so grateful for that moment. Very grateful. I cannot wait until I get ripped apart limb to limb again. Any takers? But this is how we communicate. And you could almost see that these sayings and these expressions they were born of love. They were born of us wanting to think of something we could say to the poor soul that was just ripped limb to limb and is still breathing. You want to help, and you got nothing else. So you say these things. But if we start to believe them and rely on them, then we are setting an intention through our energy and our choices and our focus and our perspective that life is going to continue to be hard. And as long as we set that intention, then guess what? Life is going to be hard. It's going to be hard. I think one of the most fundamental discoveries that we can make, and in this series so far, I don't know if I said it as clearly as I'm going to say it right now, but the universe is not a decider. It's not a judge. It doesn't make any decisions for any of us. What the universe does, and whether you think of it as creation itself, if you like the term God, if you like the term existence or all that is, or creation itself, whatever term you like. I like the universe when I'm talking about it in public, but the universe is not a decider. The universe is a mirror. The universe's role is to reflect outside of you what's going on inside of you. And not only for you as an individual, but for all of us collectively. So when there's a lot of chaos on Earth, especially regional or temporary chaos, it's reflecting something that's going on or spiking within that community or within that region. When you are seeing a lot of uncomfortable things happen directly at you, to you, whatever you think is happening, it's happening with you and for you, so that you can use the insight of the mirror and get a reflection back of what's going on inside here. The universe is a reflector. It's a mirror, and it does that job beautifully and wonderfully well. The challenge is that until we realize it's a mirror, we live as though it happens at us or to us. When we begin to recognize that the universe is our beneficial reflection, so we can see that which we are holding inside, then we get that life is happening with us and for us, not at us or to us. We are co-creators in our own lives. We are co-creators in the lives of others. We are co-creators in everything that happens on the entire planet. And when you recognize that the universe's role is to reflect back to us that which it is we focus on or do, then you get to see the reflection back and interpret if what I'm doing makes sense. Is the result what I want? Now, emotionally, that's a lot to handle, right? And I don't mean to say you're at blame if things aren't going well, and I don't mean to say you're at fault, because that sounds like a really, really heavy burden. So let's take it out of the context of a difficulty that you're having or have had. It's not that you brought it in. It's simply that it's a reflection of what you have stored from other challenges when you were younger. So let's take it out of the context of it being emotional for a moment, individually emotional. And let's look at the concept of pollution. Okay, we are very familiar, for those of you who are old enough, and a lot of you are not old enough, but we were able to be witness to what New York City was like in the 1970s, right? And through the 80s. New York City was disgusting. Bottom line, it was disgusting. It was dirty. There were smog alerts. There were times when you would go over a bridge to go into the city and you couldn't even see the skyline all day. If not for a week, you could go without seeing the skyline. When you got to the city, it was just filthy. Litter and grime and dirt everywhere. And what happened? It meant that people, what they were focusing on was getting rid of their debris or their wastes or whatever they were trying to shove underneath some rug, but they were using the air and the water and the land as their personal garbage pails or depositories for their waste, correct? The result was a city that was very disgusting. For those of us who didn't necessarily live there in those years, I know for myself, when I would get home, the first thing I would do was shower, because you had to shower when you got back from the city because it left you feeling so grotesque. Now, if we believe that what we're doing to our environment is going to continue and be self-perpetuating, and that the damage is immutable, then we wouldn't have understood that if we change what we put out there, and we change what we focus on, and we change our actions and our beliefs, that we can turn it around. And that's exactly what we did. We turned it around. We turned the city around to being a place where the air quality is not in question on a daily basis. You can see the skyline brilliantly lit almost all the time, unless there's a weather factor. You know, the litter it's so much cleaner. Even maybe 5-10 years ago, it was even more, a little more pristine. But the point is, we took this place that was a massive garbage dump, air, land, and sea. And by changing our focus and changing our beliefs and changing our thoughts and our feelings, and then subsequently changing our actions, we change the entire composition of the city. This is how you can see that the universe is a reflector. It's a mirror. Did the universe create the pollution? No. Did the universe pollute the air? No. Did this great source of guidance that's available for all of us, this universe, this collective consciousness, this existence itself, did it create these problems in the city? Did it make it filthy? No. All it did was reflect back to us that which it is we were doing. It reflected back to us what we were focusing on and what we weren't focusing on. It was reflecting back to us our priorities. That's exactly what it was doing. And so when you look at, land, sea, and air, it's a little bit easier to see how the universe is reflecting back to us for our own wisdom, so that the light can come on for us. Okay? Now, when you are driving into a city that's polluted like that, are you going to cry and say, I am personally responsible for this? I can't believe I did this. No, you're not. Not any more than you want to feel like that about the things that come your way now in this earth life. Because the challenges that you face that are outside of you, they are a composite of the reflection of everything that you experienced when you were growing up. You were not responsible for the quality of your life when you're under the age of maturity, whatever age that might be. So you are working toward changing the reflection, sorting out what happened when you were younger that you didn't have any control over. You didn't have any voice in it. You're now being able to examine those factors and see how they affected what you're projecting into the universe today. And when the universe reflects back to you a statement by what happens in your life, the ease or the dis-ease in your life, then you get to see how you're doing with taking off the harm that was done when you were a kid, or the misinformation or the misbeliefs, and how well you're getting back to what you knew when you were born, that you have the birthright to be healthy, to be loved, to be satisfied, to be fulfilled, to be creative, to love, and to be loved. You have that birthright. And as you become an adult and you have the intention to improve and to know and to grow, that birthright becomes more visible and it becomes more tangible. And you scrape away the assumption that life is hard or life is going to continue to be hard. If I have to think back to the greatest misbelief I had by the time I started to communicate with guides in those 2 years, I'm going to say that I was on board with most people, that I thought life was hard, and I thought that when we got a reprieve, nothing went wrong for a day or a week or a month. I thought it was just plain old good luck. And I, like everybody, had the feeling like, oh, what is it that they say? The shoe is going to drop, right? Don't pay too much attention to your happiness, because if you do, something's going to fall apart. It's almost like a superstition, right? And I felt the same way. I really did. It would be like accidentally I had a good day, and then you kind of like looking around like, how did that happen? Not how did I create that, or what can I do to sustain this? But I better be careful and not mention it out loud to anyone, or somebody or something's going to take this away. So I better just keep my mouth shut and pretend I never saw it. But now, after 10 years of figuring out how to get rid of that misbelief that life is hard, I don't even think twice about it anymore. Perpetual happiness is my way of life. Whenever I feel separated from the idea that I have the right to be happy, and that I can be happy, and I will be happy, and that I am happy, I know that the source of that separation is a misbelief of mine. It's not something going wrong outside of me. It's something that I have forgotten that's within me. Okay. There's two particular energies I'm going to talk about tonight. And if you did see my teaser on Facebook, I said that these are two of the most essential energies to align with, to be able to have sustainable happiness. And we're going to talk about those. And just to give you the teaser for tonight, one starts with the letter S and the other starts with the letter F. I'll make you think for a little while. F and S, F and S. All right, there's your teaser. But before I get to that part, I want to continue to talk a little bit more about what our power is in this journey. And I want to give you just a little brief history of what the last few decades have brought to us, so that we can see where we are in a collective state of consciousness. First of all, we are the first group of people in the human experience where we have lifetimes worth of discoveries in possibly decades. Okay. If you think back in history, you think about the slow evolution of social reform or awakenings in whole regions, or people understanding things from the perspective of universal wisdom, the growth was slow, and it didn't necessarily happen in a region within one generation. It would take hundreds, if not thousands of years for us to have any real sustainable aha moments for us in the collective. But in the last 4 or 5 decades, that's changed. The reason that it's changed is because we're in a period of accelerated enlightenment. And what that means is that the rapidity with which we are growing and developing collectively is happening faster and faster every day and every week and every month and every year. The way to witness this is to look at maybe the themes that we've had in the last 4 or 5 decades. And let's begin with, we'll go back even more than a few decades, but briefly. Let's go to World War II. It's a good starting point where we can see how energy works. World War II, World War, that alone says a lot. The first time in recorded human history where we had one event that so singularly united the entire world in a discovery opportunity. I'm not saying they united all of us, because it certainly didn't, but we had a shared experience. Okay, and as a byproduct of that shared experience, we lost 12 million people on Earth, or something along those lines. And it was so impactful as to have put ripples into the process of humanity for decades and decades and decades, if not forever after. That one singular moment over the course of those years allowed us to start to say, what will we tolerate? What do we expect? What are our priorities? In the aftermath, we had this little revival of what we thought would make us happy. We had ice cream shops and, rock and roll and, dancing and singing and playing and, pink toilets, and we had yellow ovens, and we had all the things that make life perfect, okay? Sewing machines and washing machines and irons that were electric, so life was really good. And during that period of time, there was such a resurgence of just being allowed to be happy briefly, that we didn't necessarily talk about our individual problems, because the change from where we were, World War II, to having, a yellow stove, that's pretty big, right? So we didn't talk about what's going on with us. My father was an alcoholic. My husband's a dirtbag. My sister doesn't love me. We didn't talk about it. So we would, in that decade of the 50s, people were self-medicating through prescriptions or alcohol, but they were polite. And they put this front on that everything is good. And there were gentlemen and there were ladies, and children had manners, and they were seen and not heard, and they raised their hand in class, and they, got hit with the knuckles if they didn't do good in school. But just because everything seemed so sing-songy on the outside, especially when you cooked, what did we make back then? I don't know. Roast beef, right? Roast beef is what we cooked. So when you put the casseroles, you got it. That's it. Okay, we got the right answer. The right answer is casseroles. So when the casserole is in the yellow oven, you're still not talking about things that are not going well. Then we had the 60s, where we're like, you know what? I'm tired of being quiet. There's some stuff going on out there that's just not right. So we had this big, big decade of people saying, I want peace, I want love, right? The counter-revolution. Then that was followed by the dirty 70s, where everybody was mixed up. Do we have rights? Are blacks equal or not? Or are we this or that? Are we allowed to be gay? Are we allowed to work if we're women? It was all so mixed up, right? So then we had the women's movement. Then we had AIDS, and that gave permission to people to talk about their gayness. So we had all this stuff happen, one after the other after the other. But each one of these discoveries, which would happen in 10 years, this wouldn't happen in 1,000 years before the last century. And the reason it's happening so rapidly is because we're unearthing everything quickly. We're getting to the core of truths, of things that have been making us disharmonious for thousands of years, even if we weren't willing to look at it or discuss it. Along with these decades of outward expression, we also had the advent of modern psychology, where we were given permission to understand cause and effect. You are not at fault for your flaws, because there's a deep-rooted reason why this happened to you. Okay. And as soon as we started to see, oh, I don't like birds because when I was 6, I was in a mall and a bird pooped on my friend's bag, right? So now we're able to oh, wow, I get it. And then we just peel this bird shit off us, and we're now free and feel really good about ourselves again, because psychology gave us permission to do that. Now, because we have all this liberty to see it. Do you know where we are right now? We're at a point right now where we're getting the connection to the bird in the mall and the shit we're carrying. But after we clear it, we're looking for more shit, right? We're like, well, I felt a little uncomfortable when it was 90 last week, and this week it was 55 degrees out, and it might be because when I was 7, I remember there was a day when I was sent down to the principal's office, and he had air conditioning and my classroom didn't. And it brings back these memories of punishment, and what did I do wrong? The shame of being it, the air conditioning, the drop in temperature. And now all of a sudden you're like, all right, I solved it. I understand why extremes in temperature make me feel so uncomfortable. So what do? You lay your head on the pillow and you feel good until the next moment of discomfort. And you're like, where did this one come from, right? Where did this come from? And this is where we are today. We're always looking for how things went amok in us. Like who made this link happen? Why are we such a hot mess? It's because of something that happened when we were kids. right? So we're staying in this. We're staying in it. You know, I think it's fantastic to get the notion down of how the dominoes push one down and then the other and then the other and the other, and to understand the result to us. But it's not to stay in a state of believing that once we open up some of them and resolve the core of it, that we have to keep thinking there's going to be another hidden issue and another hidden issue and another thing we forgot and another thing that's going to come back and bite us in the future because we haven't peeked at it. Okay? So there's a balance between giving ourselves permission to see the cause and the effect, but then when we have our growth and our learning and we integrate it, we want to give ourselves permission to be happy and to not be afraid of the unknown within us, to not be afraid of something terrible happening, but to let go of dread, to let go of the feeling that there's something around the corner that's going to unseat us, that there's something terrible that's going to happen, that's going to make us regret having been happy for 60 days. And this is where we are right now. So making discoveries means it's great to understand the big stuff in your life and why you're carrying the big mantle or the bit of shame or regret or disempowerment or feeling of unworthiness. Let's look at the big stuff. But don't go into it on such minutia, such detail, that you're limiting your ability to take the energy that's freed up because you resolved the big stuff, and you're only constantly looking for more stuff that went wrong or more stuff that could go wrong. Give yourself permission to say, if I identify the challenge and I bring in ways to resolve that challenge, that I can be free. You don't have to wait to get knocked down by something else. Okay? Does everybody understand this? Yeah, because one of the things I witnessed that I would like to single-handedly fix around the globe is this expression of disharmony that people are experiencing. And I'm talking down to the most bizarre illnesses, the most bizarre challenges that people are having with increasing frequency. What this is a derivative of is the belief that life is hard, the idea that bad stuff happened to me and I'm holding on to the consequence. So the reflection of that belief is still being reflected back to us. When I was a child, there wasn't nearly the same amount of people sick with unusual illnesses and dreadful illnesses and chronic illnesses starting at younger and younger ages. This is not a byproduct of our environment. This is a byproduct of our consciousness, collective consciousness. So I want to help people get back to saying it's okay to be happy. It's okay to be healthy. It's okay to not spend all of your time commiserating with other people who are miserable to make you feel like you're a compassionate or a good person. It's okay to skip that stuff. You don't help someone when you commiserate with them. Can you help them in other ways? Sure. But commiserating with them and giving them permission to be as miserable as they are choosing to be in the moment is not going to help them. It doesn't make you a better person to keep them in the state of belief that they have a reason to feel self-pity. The whole idea is that we want to start to model happiness. Give people a place to go. Don't give them a place to run away from. Give them a place to go to. Not something that's elusive, but something that's real. Model happiness because you're living it. Model abundance because you're living it. Model a great relationship with your body because you're living it. Model great relationships because you're living them. So instead of telling people it's okay to stay where they are, try to model ways for people to elevate, to move through the process of understanding the first domino and how it pushed down the dominoes that's creating havoc in your life today. Give them permission to have somewhere to go. Let me take a breath. I haven't breathed in 20 minutes. Oh, really? Was it? I haven't breathed in 45 minutes. Okay, I'm going to breathe. Wow, you guys had something to say there, huh? Let me take a sip of my coffee, and I'm just going to sit here. You guys don't realize, but I'm actually in San Francisco tonight. You have, you see the bridge behind me? There's the big, beautiful expansion. Yeah, and just a beautiful sight. No pollution, nothing going on in the water. The sun is setting very, very, very slowly. Very slowly. It's taking hours for the sun to set. But anyway. All right, so your guides had something to say. I don't know which one of you prompted my guides, your guides, to tell you all of this tonight, but someone did, probably all of you. Here's what we want to work on. You're going to continue to grow as individuals. You're going to continue to strive to understand the links of primarily the major things that are creating resistance or obstacles for you today. We want to knock down those obstacles. We want to get rid of them. And when we blow them down, we want to know that they're down. Don't expect them to pop back up, okay? Just expect them to be down. I always see it like those Bugs Bunny cartoons when the steamroller rolls over something and something is like flattened, right? So we flatten them, and then as soon as we turn our backs, they pop back up fully and they're bigger than ever, right? I think they grow then too. But if you really flatten something, it will stay flat. I don't recommend you try this with friends or enemies. Don't flatten anything to see that it actually doesn't pop back up, but just kind of make the assumption that when you get a chunk of stuff off you from childhood and you figured out cause and effect and you see how the dominoes work, just expect that you're good. Expect to continue to be good. Expect that the first aha moment that you had, it's going to take a big percentage of it off. Maybe it'll knock off 40% of what you were carrying in that issue. Maybe it'll hit 60%. It's not going to hit 100%. So you're going to have the laggers, those little things that kind of keep popping up as reminders. But when you have a new version of that challenge in your life, make the assumption that it's a much smaller version and it's just to knock off another percentage of your knowledge about how the dominoes work. You're not starting from scratch. If you have an aha moment about cause and effect, how your childhood affected you today, you'll never go back to unknowing it. Okay, even if you revisit the pain, if something comes back as a reminder, you're not going back to where you used to be. An aha moment prevents you from doing that. An aha moment is a one-way door. Make the assumption that you've knocked off most of it because it's true. And by most, I mean the majority, because you almost always knock off the majority of it the first time you expand into a knowingness. And then when the smaller reminders come up, they're going to feel painful because every time you elevate to a new level of happiness, when you separate from that happiness, it feels as painful as where you used to live because you're used to being happier, right? It's just about where you are in comparison to where you were. So even if you get a new version of pain, it might feel as painful as the old pain simply because you're coming from a higher place when you experience it. But do something to adjust your version of how the dominoes affected you and knock off another 10%, knock off another 20%, and you'll be fine. You don't have to go back to square one. You never have to go back to square one. So you can see that there is growth. And the discomfort you feel when you revisit an old pain, it's good to have that discomfort just as a way to remind you to just keep tweaking the insights that you have already integrated. It's not like nailed this, now I'm only going to go on to that. It's like, all right, well, I came up 60%. I get that there might be another 40% or 30 or 20 or 10. And those things will emerge a little bit, but they'll just be smaller versions of what I've already managed. And those smaller versions, I got this. I got it. I understand it. Don't have to go back to square one. If you do this with the different things that have not gone well for you, if you look at each one, the growth that you've had in each one, you can see that overall everything is elevating. So you're never going to go back to the worst state of pain that you were in. You follow? And when you recognize it and you celebrate it, you get to live in a higher vibration. And that's the person that is living with others and helping to elevate them as well. Where you were at rock bottom, not going to be the best version of yourself to elevate anyone, right? But where you are now, that's going to be a better place to help to elevate other people. Okay? So the thing is, you want to make sure that we're going to pause for 1 second, okay?
Take a break.
Take one quick break. Let's actually take our break, okay? Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your break. Listen, I said this before, and I'm going to say it again just as a reminder, but, do any of us really know what we're doing here on this planet? We're just figuring it out from the minute we land until the minute we unland. But the one thing I feel pretty certain about is that whatever it is I'm doing, it acts as a filter. That people who haven't been able to touch their own souls, they just can't get into the room. I don't know how it works. It's like the ultimate soulless detector or something. But you can't get in the room if you haven't discovered on some level how important it is to love and to be loved. And to know that you are lovable. So when we come together for any occasion or any event, know that the people in the room with you at any given moment are going to be some of the most loving people you're ever going to find on this planet. So this is our safe zone. This is our place that we are free to be whomever we are. So whether it's a topic that hits home or whether it's somebody's having, memories of something that they experienced already. I really believe that this is one of the most wonderful places you can experience it because we're soulful, and you're not always going to find soulful people around. We're going to find a lot of humans that have a lot of baggage, but not a lot of people that are doing the work to become the best versions of themselves that they can be, and that's what's here. So I know that everybody in this room really felt that in the last 15 minutes. And that's mainly, I think, the thing that keeps, my fire burning, that makes me keep coming out and out and out, place after place, time after time, over and over again, is because that's the purpose of what we're doing. It's to feel each other, to love each other, to be loved, and to be loved, right? Okay, so let's get to topic number 2. Thanks to everybody's guides for letting me not take a break for 45 minutes earlier, but thank you for that. But what we're going to talk about in making discoveries, I was telling you about how I accidentally came to different parts of knowingness. I hadn't set my compass on the destination. I hadn't pinned anything into my GPS, but I got there because I had already accepted that I have a partnership with guides in the universe. So I was in a position to already be able to be directed, not commanded, not told what to do, but to be able to have conversations where I could decide whether or not to implement suggestions that I heard. And I implemented enough suggestions that I heard that resulted in my aha moments and my increase in enlightenment and my getting back closer and closer to the vibration of love. That's the results. So along this journey, there was the F word and the S word that I had completely resisted. And honestly, I'd heard those words thrown out left and right, the F word and the S word. And I knew what they meant, like dictionary style, but I sure as heck didn't know what they meant to live them or achieve them. And so tonight, for the balance of our time together, I'll leave some time for questions, but I want to talk about the F word and I want to talk about the S word. Okay. And how important it is to at least dial up those destinations as a possibility for you. So we'll start with the first one. And the first one is the F word. And the F word that I'm referring to is forgiveness. Sorry. So sorry. So sorry. The other one's juicy. The S word's juicy. Okay. Forgiveness. Hey, listen. You go tell your brother you're sorry, and then brother, tell him you forgive him. So we've heard it, throughout our whole lives, what it means to be sorry, what it means to forgive, and how nice it is to forgive. But one of the things that's very important, and we'll all experience it in this physical journey or in another physical journey, we'll experience it on earth at some point or another until we understand it from a spiritual perspective. But you cannot compel forgiveness, okay? So one of the reasons why it eludes us for so long, for many of us, is because it's not something that can be forced. What we can do is we can work toward an understanding of the behaviors behind, beneath that which it is of a person that has done harm to us or hurt us knowingly or unknowingly. We can try to understand how the dominoes operated in that person's life and know that it wasn't personal, that we were a byproduct of whatever it is that they did, whether it was neglect or cruelty or abuse or something maybe even less insidious. But we can't compel the sensation or the energy of true forgiveness, because forgiveness is not something that can be sought. It is something that will emerge. You can set your destination on the emergence of forgiveness. And what forgiveness allows you to experience when it emerges is that it frees you. It doesn't do a damn thing for the other person, but it frees you. So you could say all you want, I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgave him a long time ago. They're just words. Usually when we have forgiveness emerge, we don't even have to talk about it because it's a quiet feeling of release, of not feeling like there's a debt or there's a punishment or that there's something that's not finished that I have to finish. I have to punch it out, or I have to get some kind of retribution, or I have to get some kind of payment, right? When forgiveness emerges, what it is comprehension. It's comprehension of this journey that has so many dominoes, not just for you, but for whomever did you any harm. Nobody is born mean. I don't care what you say. We're not born mean. We're not born hateful. We're not born abusive. We're not born neglectful. We're not born hurtful. None of us are born that way. That means if someone brought any of those elements into your life, that means that they had a lot of dominoes that separated them from just being the naturally born, really loving, good soul that they are. So if you recognize that no one is born that way, it helps you to have comprehension that there was cause and effect in their life that prevented them from having the liberty to just loving you. Because from a soul's perspective, they would sure rather just love you than to hurt you or harm you. And that's the important thing to recognize, that this matters, that it matters that they have had the same domino effect that you have had. They had the same things happen. So when you realize the effect that the dominoes that went down in their life and then the dominoes that they put in your life are the same, it helps you to let go of a resistance that you had. I'm going to let everyone just get settled for a second. And when you have that recognition of the cause and the consequence of harm or pain in someone else's life, it takes away some of the feeling of it being personal when it's directed at you. And that's when your intention to forgive and your knowledge and comprehension of how these dominoes play out, they come together, they coalesce, they form something greater than themselves as individuals. And when that happens, your intention to forgive and the knowledge that everybody is doing the best that they can within their level of awareness, when they come together, forgiveness comes forth. And when that happens, you are free. It can happen in a second, it can happen in a month, it can happen overnight. But when it happens, you'll know the difference. So it would be wonderful if I could tell you tonight that you can compel it, that you could chase down the F word and have it happen anytime you want, wherever you want, whenever you want. It just doesn't work that way. But your power comes from understanding that you can set the intention to have it happen. And when you set the intention, then the other things can come in for you. Comprehension, understanding cause and effect for other people, understanding that everyone does the best that they can within their level of awareness based on the challenges that they experienced and the harm that came to them. But what does happen when forgiveness emerges is that you feel a new sense of freedom. It's as though a dark cloud lifts and the sun comes out, and it no longer anchors you. It no longer makes you behave in a way that you are enslaved to the pain of holding on to what happened. It dissolves, and it's as though there's a moment of birth for you, because you have the liberty then to live your life by choice instead of to be beholden to the pain that someone else caused you. And I want everyone to have that experience. So tonight, I want you to declare to yourself that you intend to experience forgiveness to those who have brought you harm. And you don't have to start out with the biggest thing, because we all have had some really, really big stuff, right? You don't have to start there, but you could start with something small, like, the girl in the booth next to you that stole your stapler in 1972. You could start with something that's doable, right? So put your destination to experience forgiveness there. And then when you feel the freedom that comes, then you can try it out on something a little bit bigger. Okay? When I was in first grade, I think I had to come back to my first grade class after everybody went down for lunch, right? The teacher puts the lights out. You're not supposed to go in the room. But I went back to the room. I won't tell you how little bit of money a little carton of milk was. So let's say there was $1 for the milk, because that makes me much younger, right? So I had left my $1 for my milk.
3 cents.
7? 2 cents? 2 cents milk? That's ridiculous. How old are you? Mine was $1. Okay? That's how young I am. Mine was $1. What was yours? Derek, what was yours? You're old.
Yeah, real old.
So I had to go back to the classroom for my dollar. And I guess I didn't have a lot of freedom in those days. So this big classroom all to myself, this is interesting. And I remembered the little girl that sat at the desk in front of me. Her name, oh, I hope she's not watching. Her name was Jennifer Cook. And Jennifer had these perfect curls, which I have never achieved with however much hairspray and rollers I've ever used. She had these perfect curls, and she's just one of those kids that probably had this perfect life. And she also had chapstick. I can use the brand name because it was chapstick. And her chapstick sat where the pencils are in your desk, right? So it doesn't roll out. And every day she would take her chapstick out and she would rub it all over her lips. Well, my house had no chapstick, right? I think we were on the other side of the tracks, the chapstick-free side of the tracks. So I'm like, Jennifer Cook's not here, and her chapstick is. So I sat down at Jennifer Cook's desk, and I picked up the chapstick, and I wasn't going to put it on because that feels like that would have been mean. But I wanted to touch and play with the chapstick. So I opened it, and I'm like rolling up the dial, and the chapstick gets longer, and I'm like, this is really cool. So I get lost in my experience with the chapstick. But there's no warning label on chapstick that says we're going to defy the laws of physics, that what goes up must go back down. Because when you open up a chapstick, when you go back down, it doesn't go back in, right? So I have a heap of mess. I have a chapstick that's out. I'm turning the dial down, the chapstick's not going in. So I'm like, let me just put the lid on and I'll kind of push the chapstick back in, right? So, and then I put it back neatly exactly where it was, and I go bring my dollar down to the lunchroom and I buy my little carton of milk, and that's the end of it. I carried with me like the worst guilt and the worst fear after that. Like I was going to be caught, I was going to be snagged, I was going to be humiliated in public. It was really traumatic for me. And the only thing I can tell you at this moment is that I hope that somehow, some way on this planet, Jennifer Cook is feeling forgiveness for me. But what the story tells you is that, no matter what happened, believe it or not, in the person's perspective, whatever they were doing did feel that innocent to them, because we don't have any consciousness when we are asleep about how poorly we may be behaving based on the consequences of our life to that moment. You're thinking chapstick, not putting the thing down. The guy hit me across my face. There's a big difference. But the principle is the same. If a person is hurt or abused throughout their life, they haven't stayed connected to the idea of being responsible for the harm that they bring to others. The equation doesn't click yet. And when you start to bring that in, it helps you to set that destination and achieve the destination of forgiveness. Okay? I do believe that there are moments in everyone's life when they do become more conscious of the harm that they caused. But for the most part, a lot of the things that we're doing to others, we have no awareness because we have no frame of reference for a better way of being or thinking or a better way of reacting or a better way of treating someone, because we were never the recipient of that. All right. So my point in the story is that it doesn't mean that everything is forgivable, because there are certain things that you really don't necessarily think you're going to be able to forgive. But if you set the intention and you do try to understand that it wasn't a purposeful, malicious treatment of you, that it was coming from a place of where they were bent and snarled and twisted from their own life experiences, it just helps you to get to the possibility of letting it go. It helps you to free up your life. It helps you to let the cloud lift and get on with living in a meaningful way, what you were designed to do. You don't want to give up any more decades of your life to something that someone has done or hasn't done. You want to be free of it and live your life powerfully from this day forward. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts or questions?
I find it harder to forgive yourself.
That's a very, very good point. What she said is that she finds it harder to forgive herself. That's a really great point. One of the reasons why I focus on forgiveness for people is because it is oftentimes easier for us to see the effect that someone's life had on them and then the behaviors that they have adopted. It's easier to see it in someone else than it is to see in ourselves, because the only frame of reference we have for ourselves is our life, and we don't see where the road split and we were pushed down a fork that we didn't choose. We can't see those moments because we were only living on the fork that somebody pushed us down, right? In someone else's life, you can see the cause and the consequence. So when you put out the idea to intend to forgive someone that brought you harm, you can get a better understanding of how they turned out to be who they were. And when you experience forgiveness, what you're doing is you're really bringing in this concept that everybody's doing the best that they can within their level of awareness. And I found that to be the greatest platform for self-forgiveness, for releasing regret, for releasing shame, for releasing things that we think for ourselves are unforgivable. When I say that these are the two most important energies to bring into your life or to align with, one of the primary reasons is, number one, forgiveness frees you up to live your life. But more importantly is exactly what you said. It is the pathway or the step for many of us to be able to forgive ourselves. The second book that I channeled is called Begin Here. And I thought it was odd that it was called Begin Here, because if it's called Begin Here, why didn't you let me channel that one first? Wouldn't that make a little more sense? But no, this is the way we're going to do it. Okay, so Begin Here is second. And the reason that the guides channeled Begin Here to me second instead of first is because it really is about the power of self-love and how to achieve it. And believe it or not, I can say till I'm blue in the face that the foundation of all happiness in your life, all fulfillment in your life, all harmony in your life, the basis is loving yourself. And I can say it, and I can say it, and I can say it. But you're not going to believe it until you grow your love of self. And then when you look back, you'll see, well, that's why that was a mess, because I didn't love myself. So it's difficult for us to start with self-forgiveness, but it's easier for us to start with forgiving others and growing our self-love and therefore our self-forgiveness through the action of experiencing forgiveness for others. And it often happens, not just about shame and forgiveness, but it happens with so many of the things that we're wanting to achieve. So that was a really great question. Thank you. Thank you. And this is the platform for it. I have to tell you that being able to let my consciousness return home, I get to experience things that a lot of people don't. And I wish that people would be able to experience it more. But to be surrounded by souls that love you without putting any conditions on that love, it sounds like words, but the energy of it and the experience of it is beyond words. It is liberating, it's expansive, it's ecstasy, it's meaningful, it's possibility, it's optimism, it's freedom. When there's a soul that is supporting you and loving you and explaining things to you without judgment, no matter what you think you've done wrong, but without judgment, it helps you to recognize that your self-criticism or your version of how you could have done better or been more, your version is false. The things that you might have done better, you did the best you could within your level of awareness. And that it doesn't matter where on the spectrum it is, whatever you think your infractions were, whatever it is you think you should have done or you think you shouldn't have done, in the spectrum of what you think is the least bad, like rolling up someone's chapstick in first grade, or what you might think is the most awful. It really doesn't even matter how energetically difficult the thing is that you did or did not do. We are all worthy of self-love. We are all worthy of getting rid of all of that stuff that happened that maybe caused us to be able to do this thing. If you're separated from love to any degree when you're a child, how are you supposed to be love in someone else's life? How are you supposed to love yourself? So recognizing this allows you to give yourself permission to say that there's nothing in the world I have done or not done that is not forgivable. You know, I do have some times when I'm working with a client and we get to a point where we've done whatever we can do as people to try to help them free themselves of something they've been carrying about their own choices. And eventually it is, you have to hand it off. You know, you have to hand it off. You have to believe with some level of faith that there's a higher power. That higher power is within you. You are a spark of that higher power. But just take it out of this body and hand it off to something that has unlimited capacity to love and to transform and to help you and to guide you. And you just pass it off, hand it off. Because when you get to the moment where you pass it off, you've done everything that you can as a human to understand why you experienced something that you think you shouldn't be forgiven for. Okay? And that segues us beautifully into the S word.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it though.
We got someone in the audience waiting for the S. Does anyone have a guess what the S word might be?
Surrender.
Who said that? You read my essay.
No, I didn't.
No, I'm kidding you. It is. That's exactly what it is.
What is it? Surrender?
Surrender.
What is it?
Surrender.
Thanks.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you.
Oh, man.
Chapstick to the girl in the back. To the young girl who spent 3 cents on her milk. It was 3, right?
2.
2.
We went to the same school.
It's a very young girl in the back.
That's true.
Okay. Let's talk about this, because this is definitely an energy that I had absolutely no idea about when I started this journey. I think that even as a word, it wasn't a word that I heard very much. Like forgiveness is something you hear. You know, now, thanks to Disney, we all know about Let It Go. But, you know, back in the day when milk was $1 for a small carton, we didn't really hear about surrender. You know, some of us had religions that our families practiced, and maybe there was some kind of version of faith or something going on there, but we didn't really necessarily understand what it meant. But what it is that we are not alone. You know, when I say that we are a spark of all that is, when we are a spark of creation itself, when we are a spark of the collective vibration of love, when we are a spark of existence itself, we are all that spark. We are all individual and unique sparks of that original source. So that means that we're not alone. Okay. If you are a spark of something that is so magnificent and so vivid and so bright and so everlasting, and it is love, then that means that there's a partner. If you're a spark of it, there's this infinite partner there to help you out with this journey. We're not meant to land here and to suffer, despite popular opinion. We're not meant to land here and then suffer. We're meant to land here and remember the spark that we are, and that spark is a part of the collective. And we're here to remember that the collective is us and that we are one. And that even though we're in a body that might seem finite in comparison to, not having an attached limb to anyone else, it feels like we're having this own experience in the physical. The physical does not define us any more than your brain is your thoughts. The essence of your being and your consciousness might get, tossed around a little bit and provoked and evoked in your brain, but your brain is not the essence of your being. That's simply the mechanism that allows you to have your thought energy in the physical. So you are not separate just because your body is separate. If I were to put, something in the water off Jones Beach, no matter how long it took, there would be a molecule of that one day, somehow, some way, that would land on the shores of Asia, because we are connected in time and space. We might not see the connection instantaneously as it really does exist. So we have to slow travel. We got to move through the earth. We got to move through time and space to kind of sort all this out. But when we're in the energy realm, we recognize that time and space are illusions. They're an illusion of separateness. And in the energy realm, we understand that there is no separateness. You have an individual consciousness, which is wonderful, because you should. You're so unique and you're so original. You should have your own unique consciousness. But just because you have an individual consciousness doesn't mean that you're not connected to everything in all of existence. So I didn't understand any of this back in those 2 years when my masks and layers were flying off. I didn't even know that I could make it a destination to let go, to ask for help, to surrender. I didn't know any of that was possible. I was, raised in an environment where I had to figure things out on your own. I think probably by the time I was 9 years old, in some weird way, I was a one-person island, just, self-sufficient, self-reliant, doing the best I could. But I certainly didn't understand that there was support at every turn of the page. So I couldn't set that as my destination, but we have collectively evolved since those first years that I communicated with guides, and those first years that I allowed my consciousness to return to the energy realm. And in that evolution that we've had collectively, I think there's very few people in our communities that don't understand at least the theoretical concept that we are all one. But you're here by choice, which means that you have a higher level of understanding of the purpose of life and the meaning of your life. And you're trying to achieve your own maximum joy and being comfortable with your identity and being comfortable with your purpose. So simply by the fact that these topics are interesting to you and you have curiosity about them, it means that you accept on some level that we are all connected. That means that you know that there's support here for you, not just in the physical, but beyond the physical. And that support is never ending. It will never dry up. It'll never go away. It'll never abandon you. It'll never judge you. It will only love you. And sometimes the less you love yourself, the more it will come in, double down on loving you and trying to let you know that you are lovable. Because that's exactly what the energies of your guides and the universe do. So what surrender is, it's accepting that this energy exists. I feel like when you don't know it's possible, you see nothing. You see no signs, you see no evidence of support, you really are going it alone. You're constantly hacking through all the growth of stuff that's all around you, getting in your way and fighting off mosquitoes and wolves. But as soon as you have any level of awareness that this energy exists and that we are all derived from that same source of energy, when you begin to appreciate and know it, then you recognize that you're allowed to tap into it. And usually the first bit of evidence comes through signs, synchronicities, cool happenings, knowing something that you don't know through earthly means, the unexplainable, coincidence. These are ways that the universe is always kind of trying to tap us on the shoulder to help us be aware that they're there loving us and supporting us and that we are not alone. So even if today is the day that you're going to test out this idea that you're not alone, I don't think it is this day for you, but even if it were this day for you, then today on, look for signs, look for coincidences, look for times when you think of someone and then they appear. Look for when you're getting answers in a dream. Look for when you're getting visits from loved ones in a dream, not just dreaming about them, but they're actually there in your dreams and you're visiting. Look for coincidence. Look for things that pop in your head and then you see it on TV or it pops up in an email. When you start to see how in sync things really are, you're getting evidence of how we are all connected. I can't remember who I was speaking to today, but somebody was telling me that someone had just recently reached out and gotten in touch with her. And she said, I noticed that this person is always staying in touch with me. And this happens to be one person that I don't stay in touch with. And I think it's because she always does it, right? So I don't never have to because she's always there. And as we were talking, she's like, oh, yeah, she was my first boss. And she hired me because we have the same birthday. I was like, you know what? There you go. That's an example of a purposeful synchronicity. Whatever happened in that first interview that allowed them to come to a conversation that we share a birthday, guides are prompting us to say things or to have a curiosity or to peek at something. They could have gone through that interview and never knowing that they shared a birthday. And that seems like a more probable outcome, right? Yet it did happen. And then as soon as the link was made that there's the divide between us is not really that great because we share a birthday. So of course there is no divide between us. Then that's the universe's way of allowing us to put our engagement into something that has the probability of helping us to grow or learn or be happy or be abundant or be free. So these coincidences and these synchronicities and these signs from the universe, sometimes they're really guiding us specifically and at a bare minimum helping to remind us all the time that we're not alone, because we really are not alone and we are never alone. So surrender is you doing your part. In the complexity of life, there's a lot to doing your part. You got to be conscious of how you think. You want to be aware of how you feel. You want to take a peek at all those dominoes and the effect that it had on you. You want to take another look at your belief system. If something is not going the way you want it to in your life, you got to look at the beliefs that you have beneath the way things might be disharmonious. And then you got to participate. You got to be engaged in the journey. You gotta take action, right? That's a lot. I mean, it's exhausting. You gotta think, feel, believe, and take actions based on what you're thinking and believing to create the reality of your dreams. So you gotta show up. You got to do your part. You can't just sit in your house with a TV clicker and a bag of salted vinegar Lay's potato chips and a half a gallon of ice cream. Oh, they don't make half gallons anymore. A 3/4 of a gallon of half a gallon. No, wait, what is it? I don't know. 5/5? I don't know. No, that would be 4/5. So forget the math. I can channel well, but the other stuff goes out the window, as we all know at this moment. Yep, 4.0 in my master's, everybody. That I swear. I can prove it. It's on a piece of paper. But, so anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. So ice cream and salt and vinegar chips, you're not showing up. You can do that on occasion, and you can figure out the consequence of doing that. And there's gonna be some kind of consequence. It might be a little low in energy or whatever. You might be thirsty, but so you gotta show up. You gotta participate in your end of it. You gotta actively be on your path. You gotta do. You gotta feel. You gotta think. You gotta believe. You gotta sing. You gotta play. Don't listen to me sing. You have to sing. But you got to be in your life. You can't be passive. You can't just watch your life, right? So if you show up for your life, then all those signs will become more and more visible because you're participating. When those signs become visible, what the universe is telling you that because you showed up, today there'll be a bonus. We're going to double the effort that you put in. You put in this much effort, and at the end of the 1/2 hour, we're going to double your effort. So instead of taking 1 step forward, you are going to take 2 steps forward simply because you participated in your life. So if you do it, you have a goal, you have a plan, you have a belief, you be you. You be you. If you do that, if you show up and you be you, they're going to take over at least half of it for you. You're going to get twice as far just because you showed up. That's surrender. Then hand it off. Let them help you. Don't say, listen, life is hard. And I really believe that this is something I have to do by myself. Please don't help me. Please don't put amazing coincidences in front of me. Please don't get just the right person at my doorstep at exactly right moment. Please don't do that. I am self-reliant. I am strong. Do not help me. Do not help me. I can do this by myself. Because if you do that, then all you're going to be doing is traveling a lot slower than you might have traveled if you just say, I'm here, I'm doing my part, I'm doing the best I can, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm wanting to experience improvements and awakenings every day of my life. I'm here, and therefore I know you're here too. So let's do this together, because I really, truly know beyond a shadow of a doubt that when I show up and I be me, that you're going to show up and you're going to double all of my effort. At a minimum, you're going to double my effort. At a minimum, you're going to double my effort. When I worked in business, I was one of the few women in my industry. So I was required to go to like a lot of networking events because it was good for the company for them to show that they had a woman and she had a salary and, she wore a suit. So I had to be the face out there that showed that they, hired women. And I hated networking events. It like brought out like my deep-seated shyness, I didn't want to do it and I hated it, but I did it. I had to get it done. So then when I transformed my life, here I am, I'm, talking to dead people, floating around in the energy realm, got stuff to say. And so I'm leaving corporate America and I'm going to do this stuff because that sounds like a really good idea, right? The only way I know how to do it is that you network. So I started to network. I went to business networking events. I look back on it, it was like nuts. But that's what I did. I had a business card and I started, do you want me to talk to your dead loved ones? Would you like me to tell you what you were in a past life? All of a sudden, this is who I am. And I hated the networking. I would, I'd have to really psych myself up for it, or I'd grab a friend and drag her ass with me. I'd do whatever I had to do to get it done. And as I was peeling off the masks and layers, and I was showing up in my life, and I was participating, and I might have been on target, and oftentimes I wasn't on target, but I was really showing up with determination and the belief in the possibility that this was a good idea. So I did my part. What happened was, I'll never forget this. It was 2009. I was at a networking event. I knew some way theoretically that my vibrational energy had been really increasing. Like, I could tell people were treating me differently. I was having a brand new life. I was having transformations that I'd never seen anyone else experience. I show up at this networking function, and it was, there were 200 people at it. She wouldn't go with me. She's probably sick of like being my right wing man. Is that what it is? I don't know. But so she was tired of it. And for some reason, she wasn't there that night. So I was alone, except I had the universe with me. And so 200 people, it was a packed house. And when you walk into a circumstance like that, you think everybody knows what they're doing except for you. And everybody wants to talk to everybody except you. That's just how it feels, right? And I don't know anybody there, not one person. And I stood there. I probably had a drink. And someone came over and started talking to me. And she came from like a crowded side on the end. She said, I don't know what it was, but when I saw your face, I knew I had to come over and I had to talk to you. And I'm like, all right, good. That's going to be 20 minutes. I don't have to go and make a move to introduce myself to anyone, right? This is really, really good. And we did wind up talking for a little while. And then I moved around the space a little bit, and I met a second person that night. And I think I met a couple of others, 2 or 3 other people. But in the whole networking event, 200 people, I met probably 5 people all night. Anyone would say that's a networking failure, big time. Okay, you clearly did not meet your objectives. Going home with all the business cards you came with, you did not meet your objective. Yet, what happened was those 2 people, the one who found me and the one I kind of gravitated toward, we wound up, meeting at Starbucks for the perfunctory after networking coffee that you have to determine how you might benefit one another. So we went out for that, and they wound up being 2 people that were really instrumental for helping me to discover a path that could segue me from corporate America to what it is that I'm doing. They had a belief in the things that I said, and we became friendly, and then we became friends. And I'm in contact with both of them to this day. So yeah, thank you. But the whole point of it is that if I had been in that environment, 5 years later, 5 years earlier when I was working in corporate, I wouldn't have had that result. I would have had to meet all damn 200 people, and I would have probably not had one spot-on decent conversation with any of them, because I was showing up alone all the time, because I believed that life was hard, and I believed that I have to be self-reliant and strong, and that everything is difficult. So I wouldn't have met those 2 key people. I wouldn't have been at a vibrational energy where the universe just helped this happen. And this is the way the world works. When you're in the know, it supports you. It will take 198 people out of your way for you if you show up with intention, with love, with belief in the possibility, with optimism. If you engage, I don't care if you're on the wrong path, because it doesn't matter, because you're going to find the right path, even if you start out on a path that's not exactly straight, going to get you right there. It doesn't matter the path that you're on, but show up on that path with the belief and the willingness that you're worthy of it. Come with optimism. Come with being engaged, whatever that is. And then the universe is going to be there right by your side, helping you. They'll paddle the boat, they'll steer it, they'll change the direction of the wind, they'll turn the TV on when you think you're all alone. They'll do anything that they can to help you know that you are guided. And that's what surrender is. Surrender is not having to be a one-man show, a one-woman show, a one-person island. It's being able to find the strengths that you have, but be able to exponentially increase the strengths that you have simply by allowing the universe to do its job, which is to help you, to guide you, to promote you, to assist you, to soothe you, to love you, to build your self-love, to help you release shame, to help you find all of the miraculous characteristics and qualities and sparks that are within you, to accept that they're real, to accept that they are worthy, to know that when you believe in them, you're going to find other people, the 2 out of 200, that see them in you too. And that's what surrender is. It's letting go of the need to do everything by yourself, because you don't have to do everything by yourself. You never did, but now more than ever, you don't have to. You can ask for help. When I started this journey, I would hear, I didn't even have any spiritual vocabulary. So I would like to say I didn't know a chakra from an elbow. I had no spiritual language. So I wouldn't use language. Like I wouldn't say things like angels, or I wouldn't say things like vibrations, or I wouldn't say things like Reiki. They weren't in my vocabulary. But when I started to communicate with souls without bodies, the word that kept popping for me was guide. You know, I think it's a more common word today, but when I started, it wasn't as common of a word as it is today. I don't think people really truly had an understanding of what a guide was, except only in linear fashion, that in your own lineage, if someone died, that they could be your guide. And that was the only thing that we really kind of maybe thought was possible. But the reason I've stuck with the term is because that's exactly what these energies are doing with us, is they're guiding us. You know, no one tells us what to do. No soul in or out of a body need tell us what to do, because we have the capability to use the intuition that's within us to know if some guidance or suggestion on or off Earth is resonating with us. So we get to be the determining factor in whether or not we're going to align with it, because we have free will. We have the power to make our own decisions. We have the power to decide. So your guides will help to bring you to the point that you know what options are available and to know that you can choose, but they're not going to tell you what to do. They're not going to give you any definitives, because you're at the helm. This journey is yours. They'll never leave you. They'll always guide you. They'll always support you. But you get to make all of the decisions at the end of the day. It was funny, during the period of really communicating with guides fervently, obsessively, because it was so new and so fun and so powerful for me. I went through a lot of experiments with them, and I didn't know I was doing experiments with them. But on occasion, they would be a little bit commanding in some of the things that they suggested, almost like telling me, do it. And then I would do it because I'd already developed some trust in them. And then when I would do it, especially if I didn't want to, there would be a negative consequence to me. What the guides were doing was, in those years, and they realized that ultimately I would be able to become a conduit for a lot of people on Earth by listening to what they were sharing. They knew that it was very, very important that I be clear about what powers we have. So if I did something that was suggested to me, even though it wasn't resonating with me, there would be a negative consequence to me, because it was very important that they knew that I knew that I had free will, and that I could say no, and that I could exercise choice. So after months of that going back and forth, and me feeling let down because it was a negative consequence to something that they told me to do, I finally was able to reach the state of clarity where I could see that they clearly asked me to do something that I didn't want to do. Not because I didn't feel like doing it, but because it just didn't feel right. You know the difference, right? I don't want to clean the bathroom, but it actually does feel right to have a clean bathroom, right? There's a big difference. I'm not going to say, if they say clean the bathroom, I'm not going to say, hell no, that just doesn't feel right to me. But there were certain things that they said, it just didn't resonate with me. Like, I'm like, I don't know. All right. Yeah, if you say so. But what I realized was that this power that we have in aligning with the universe and surrendering, it's a partnership. It's not a dictatorship. No one, no source, dead or alive, should dictate anything to you. No one, dead or alive, should dictate anything to you. You decide.
Can you give an example?
A village needs money, right? They're running out of money. Why are they running out of money? They spend a lot of money. You are a blank check. So all of a sudden they run around and they take a 35 mile an hour speed zone where there's been no incident in 30 years, and they put up 25 mile an hour speed signs. And then they park and they pull you over because you went 30 miles an hour. It's a revenue catcher, right? So they dictated to you, we need money, so we're going to entrap you in a law that we made up simply to generate revenue. That's dictatorship. That's not participation. So in a case like that, we say, oh my gosh, I have to pay it because yes, there was the 25 mile an hour speed limit and I have to obey the law. But that's dictatorship. Why not stand up and say, this rule doesn't make sense. It's not resonating with me. Instead of me believing I did something wrong because I went against your arbitrary need to raise money that's not founded in any safety issue whatsoever. This is the point. We do become very complacent in listening to other people telling us what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to be afraid of. And we have narrated fears to us constantly. That's a dictatorship. If you're told that you have to take a purple pill because you have bloating, if you're not participating in the decision, then it's a dictatorship. So what I'm saying is you have to listen to what you're listening to. Pay attention to it. Does this make sense? So I'm talking about examples of people on earth, but also non-physical sources. You participate in the conversation. After I realized that I had to have what was suggested to me resonate with me, I actually went through a period where I went to the opposite extreme. And I'm like, hell no, I've been burned by you before, right? Anyone know where that's from? What line? Beauty and the Beast. Right, you got it. Yeah, I've been burned by you before. All right, my accent wasn't good enough. I've been burned by you before. Did I do it? Did I nail it then? Right? Did we got it? Right? Okay, so I've been burned by you before. And I'm not going to get burned by you. So I would do almost the opposite of the things that were suggested to me. But I still was not listening. I wasn't using me in the equation. Now I was anti them. Before I was too pro them. Now I'm too anti them. But all I had to do was find that place in the middle where I had my version in the equation. Did it resonate with me? Does this make sense? Does this make me feel good? Does this feel like a good choice? Does this feel right for me at the moment? And that's how you avoid being dictated to.
A sheeple.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Instead of being a sheeple. I like that. That's good. And so I used some examples that I think people are like, yeah, the 25 mile an hour speed trap, that kind of thing. It happens all over. But if we increasingly as individuals and collectively allow other people to dictate to us things that are not founded in truth or wisdom, then we're eventually going to become completely impotent, all of us, because we won't be able to recognize or exercise our own power to any degree. But if you stay alert and you pay attention to, does this resonate? Okay, does this make sense? Is this a high quality example of a rule? Right? If you really, I'll give you an interesting example of something that just happened. My son was asked by the flag football league director to help out setting up the fields for the year, for the season. And that means, marking them out and, doing everything you have to get prepared. And we're going to be playing football on Saturday. You got to get ready. And they show up on the field and they're all ready. They have all their equipment and so on. And a custodian comes out of the building and says, you can't do that. They've been doing it for 10, 15 years. And the custodian said, well, I need paperwork to say that you have permission to map out the field. Map it out. No permanent changes whatsoever. Just simply map it out. And they didn't have paperwork. And so there was a little runaround going back and forth, this, that, and the other thing. And finally, the custodian said, well, starting this year, we have to have paperwork that gives you the authority to be on our field, marking it out for flag football that you've been doing for 15 years, because we don't want the liability if anything should be going wrong if you don't have your paperwork. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. My kid did not go to the field and take, 35-year-olds and stick them in a rocket ship and say, put your oxygen mask on because this thing is launching, baby. We just went to show where the field would be, like we've been doing for 15 years. The point is that if we're not participating in our own journey, this is what life is going to be like. You're not going to be allowed to do anything anywhere ever without permission from the government to get it done. So when I say participate, you participate with your guides. Does this feel good? Does this feel truthful? Does this feel right? But participate in everything. Do I really want to eat out of styrofoam? Do I feel good about this rule? Does this rule make sense for me? Just at least think. You don't have to act on everything because we can't fix everything. But if you keep thinking and you keep participating in your own journey, then you won't run the risk of having everything you can and cannot do be dictated to you. With guides, it's easy. They're not going to put you through the ringer that they put me through. There was a purpose in them, telling me to do something and then me having a negative consequence when I did it, because they knew that I would be a springboard for helping other people listen to their own intuition and to listen to the voice within and to get back to being intuitive. So I am a conduit, so it's very important that I have integrity in helping others to understand that this energy is available to them. For you, the only reason a guide would ever do that to you is if they felt a dependency. If you were passing on your power and not participating in your own journey, then they might put a halt to it and ask you to step up and be a part of it. But other than that, they're just going to keep guiding you. They're going to keep assisting you. They're going to keep loving you. And they're going to keep being there for you endlessly and forever, over and over and over again, forever, before birth and after death. That's what's going to happen.
Yay.
So that's what surrender is. So tonight the theme is, show up as you believe yourself to be, even if it changes every day of your life. Show up, participate, keep seeing the consequence of the dominoes. Give yourself permission to believe that life is meant to be happy and joyful. Play in this life. Don't suffer in this life. Play in this life. Give yourself permission to be happy. And then you can set the dial on your destination, GPS, compass, whatever you want to call it, but set the destination to forgiveness and to surrender. Yes.
What is the next seminar? When is the next seminar?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's a great question. When's the next seminar? Okay. I will be appearing in, I don't know.
October 10th.
October 10th?
See where it's large?
Okay.
Well,
Okay. The next evening here is October 10th, right? Here, Making Discoveries. That one's going to be a good one because there is something brewing. And I will be in Manhattan tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I'll be in Manhattan if anyone wants to come to the EPG tomorrow night in Manhattan. I'll also be in, I wish I knew what town, but it's local and it's on October 24th. That night I'll be in, I wonder what the name of that is. Oh God, I'm so bad at this.
KarenGarvey.com, look on your website.
All right, KarenGarvey.com. There's an events page, but there is a place I'll be on September 24th. It's a Monday evening, and it is fairly local, and I'm doing questions and answers. I just can't simply remember the name of the place, and I apologize for that. And I think that's, and then I have an online workshop that'll be starting on September 24th as well. I don't know the date that my appearance will appear, but again, you can go to KarenGarvey.com and we'll keep you updated. And we always keep you updated on Facebook. But thank you. I know I went over, and I apologize for that, but I just want to leave you with one thought. One of the roles that I find I didn't necessarily request it, but I do accidentally kind of get sneak previews of things to come. You know, for better or for worse, they happen. But there is, I have an increasing sense or knowledge that October is going to be a very unusual month for us. Okay. And I do have some hints as to what that means, why it's going to be an unusual month for us. I probably I've had these hints for, many, many, many months now, and October is coming. So whatever is transforming during that month, whatever energies are coming in, whatever energies are leaving, there'll be questions, and I know that there'll be questions, and I am here, as I am always here, to bring answers forth for you. So if you have any confusion about anything that's going on in your life during the month of October, or what's going on in the world in the month of October, I'm here. Okay?
Or in your life.
Yeah. If you have any questions at all, I'm here. I'm your conduit for answers, so I'll be here. And I do think that, the showing up part, it gives you an exemption to a lot of chaos that people en masse might be experiencing. I think that's the best way that I can describe it. So understand that when you show up and you participate in the meaningful aspects of life, when you believe in yourself and you believe in love, you believe in self-love, when there are rapid changes going on around us, when rapid changes happen and energy shifts and things happen, there's going to be a lot of people that are caught up in the stuff, right? In the turmoil, in the heart of it, in the middle of it. But being in the know and being aware, or being aware to be aware, helps you to not be in the center of chaos. Okay? So take your free pass and take the double steps, action steps that you get from your guides, and have a great time. And I will see you again very soon. Thank you.